Hey folks, hope you're all doing well and welcome back to the channel. So it's that time again. It's my almost monthly show with Martin and Pete, and we got a pretty cool topic today. So what we're doing is we're picking three bands each. We've all picked three different bands, and from each one of those bands we're picking 5 songs that we feel kind of cover the type of material that they do within that band. So all the different styles that they do, not necessarily our favorite songs, but the 5 songs that kind of show all the different styles that the bands are capable of. So again, to help me in this endeavor, we have Mr. Martin Popoff and Mr. Pete Pardo. How are you gentlemen doing?
Doing all right.
What's up, Martin?
All right.
Cool idea.
Okay. Yeah. So, what I did was, well, with my bands, first of all, I have sort of a hidden agenda. I'm always trying to push the Canadian thing. So my bands are all Canadian. One of them, probably most people don't know. One of them, some people will know. The third one, everybody knows. But yeah. So, and it's just, going through the catalog and I was just kind of picking out, okay, they do this style, they do that style, they do this style. Again, these aren't necessarily my favorite songs. Some of these songs are killer, though, I got to admit. But yeah, just sort of, to give you an idea of what these guys do, right? So that's kind of where I'm coming from with this. And you guys picked completely different bands too. Who did you pick, Martin? What were the 3 bands?
I've got Motorhead, Alice Cooper, and Gillan.
Okay. Pete, who did you go with?
I got Nazareth, Trapeze, and Europe.
Okay, cool. So the other thing too is this might be, a way for somebody that, had a passing interest in one of these bands and wants to check them out. These could be looked at as, songs to experiment with and see if they like what these guys do. So that's another sort of agenda here. So got a couple different reasons for doing this. Alrighty. So let's start with Martin and then Pete and then myself. So let's start with the first band and your 5 songs.
All right, so I'll start with Motorhead. What I liked about this exercise is it got me thinking, like, if you went and did this really, really properly, you could actually have a whole show where you literally go through the catalog and find all of the songs of that kind and talk about them, right? Because I think with most of these bands, it feels like you could get many, many, many examples of it, and it would be hilarious. It'd be better if it was a kind of a show where you can actually play the songs and just show, demonstrate, how often they do this kind of thing. But yeah, there's some definite possibilities with this idea. So with Motorhead, the first thing that came to mind was the whole idea of the double bass drum and being fast and being one of the the proto speed metal bands or an actual speed metal band. So I thought of Overkill. And then you think of Ace of Spades as being the big follow-up to Overkill, but you've got Bomber, you've got We Are the Road Crew for a different rhythm, but still a fast song. Iron Fist. So with Iron Fist, you can move away from the double bass and still get a fast sound, but it's more of like a punky proto thrash fast sound. So Motorhead could be proto thrash. They could be like literally kind of speed metal. And yeah, pioneering with the double bass thing, famously that song with Filthy Animal Taylor was the first song with double bass all the way through. And then I thought, again, this is one where I've often thought with Motorhead, I'd like to do some kind of a book analyzing their songs in these different categories, or at least looking at their lyrics. But I thought of Orgasmatron and how many times they've kind of gone that route and did sort of the epic Motorhead song, grinding mid-pace sort of thing. But you get Voices from the War, Dogs of War, 1916. So you get a lot of war stuff. It's kind of interesting writing musically usually. But Lemmy likes his war stuff. We know famously he had a big World War II collection, filling up his apartment close to the Rainbow there. And then I thought of them doing covers, Motorheadized covers. So Sympathy for the Devil would be a good one, because they kind of pick semi kind of humorous choices. They're not really kind of deep choices usually. Like they covered Cat Scratch Fever on the first album. They covered Train Kept a Rollin'. They covered Louie Louie in a real sort of trashy version. They did that famous Motorhead Girl School, whatever EP. They did Please Don't Touch, Johnny Kidd and the Pirates. They did Beer Drinkers and Hellraisers. So they've done a few covers over the years as well. And that's kind of a neat thing. And they're sort of like newsy when they do them. Then I thought of something like I wanted to pick for my core anchor song in all cases, like things that people would know. So it kind of goes off in their head. But I'll Be Your Sister. I always thought that was one of the first songs by them that was just a really cool novel heavy metal song with a good riff. And they have many of those, but I always thought Poison and Shoot You in the Back and America. So just Motorhead writing, even though Lemmy would deny they're a heavy metal band, Motorhead just writing really good riffs and being a heavy band that way. And my final one was Killed by Death, because I like quite often Motorhead. They will go back to Lemmy's roots. He's one of the few rock stars we ever knew that would claim, and he'd tell you this, is like, I was there for the birth of rock and roll, and he kind of was, right? So they've often done a lot of like boogie rock and sort of songs. So Killed by Death is my favorite. It's an early one, but then Overnight Sensation later on, One Night Stand, English Rose is a really good one. So they're like heavy, big, massive, distorted chords still, but there's a little bit of a boogie structure, a little bit of a touch of the Rolling Stones to these songs. So that's another direction I think they really do well. And then just I thought of another couple of kind of fascinating categories. They didn't pick songs, but they occasionally will do ballads more every once in a while. And Lemmy also has his atheist songs, right? And the funny thing is that the ballads quite often bisect with the idea of he wants to write one of these atheist songs. So he won't do a love ballad. He'll do a ballad about God kind of thing. So he's got some of those things that are kind of cool. So yeah, fascinating band with and because they have so many albums and everybody thinks they sound so similar, and they kind of do. But part of causing that similarity is as each one of those came out like clockwork every year or two or whatever, all through the 2000s. You always could hear songs that you would line up and throw in a basket. So Motorhead, you could really have like 10 baskets like this, and I swear you could put 12 to 20 songs in each of these baskets, kind of thing. So there you go. That's my first one, Motorhead.
All right. Okay. Pete.
So two of the bands I chose because both are kind of almost known for one song that isn't really representative of what they're all about. So I wanted to pick, 5 songs from each of them that really define more about what they're all about. And then my third band never really had any hits. So it's a band that I think more people deserve to know about. And I think it's just like Hack said, it's always a good idea. It's always great to just turn people on to bands that maybe songs they've never heard before as a way to get into a band for the first time. So Nazareth is my first pick here. And kind of where I was going with this, it's like, their most well-known song is Love Hurts, which is a cover. It's a ballad, right? And really not what Nazareth is all about. Sure, they've done lots of covers, but if you were to kind of talk about the prototypical Nazareth sound, Love Hurts ain't it by any means. So I tried to go find like 5 songs that really do a lot of what Nazareth did so well. I mean, the kind of the raunchy, bluesy, hard rock, the boogie, but still the strong hints of melody, right? Not quite a metal band, not really a pop band, not really a blues band, not really a boogie band, but they kind of do all that stuff and then some. So my first track is Razamanaz from the album of the same name. Again, these might not be my absolute favorite Nazareth songs, but I think if you're brand new to Nazareth and you want to experience what they're all about, a song like Razamanaz is it. It's up-tempo, rocking, great guitar work. You get Dan McCafferty in full bloom there. That's my first pick. Number 2, I'm going to go with the title track to Hair of the Dog. So we got 2 title tracks in a row. Again, one of their more popular radio songs, but again, it's pretty representative of what Nazareth do. It's catchy, it's rocking, great vocals, great guitars. The hooks are there, the groove is there. Excellent, excellent track. Number 3, I'm going to go with Expect No Mercy. Got all title tracks here. I didn't plan it that way, but it's just kind of the way it worked out. And Expect No Mercy, again, heavy hitting song. Great guitar lines, great riffs, and just a good hard charging bluesy rock song. But it gives you all those things that Nazareth do so well. And from the same album, I'm also going to go with All the King's Horses, because I think above all the kind of like gritty, bluesy, hard rock stuff that they do, these guys could also write some really good songs. And Dan, as rough as his vocal style was, could be a really beautiful singer when he wanted to.
Yeah.
All the King's Horses, just so epic sounding, so majestic. And they had that side to them as well. And then the last one I'm going to pick is Just to Get Into It from No Mean City, which again, this is just an example of the kick-ass Nazareth with just the raunchy guitars. And man, that voice just dripping with like piss and vinegar, which I think is what Dan McCafferty was always so great at. So yeah, so you'll notice No Love Hurts in this list. There were other songs that are among my favorites that I wanted to pick, but I'm kind of like, wow, is that really like define what they're all about? Maybe not. Like I wanted to pick Miss Misery, but they didn't really do a ton of songs like slow and Sabbathy like that. So I think everything that I picked is more kind of the essence of what Nazareth is all about, and a great little starter pack of 5 songs for anybody to get started with Nazareth.
Nice. Sweet.
All right, cool. Okay, so the first band I'm going to talk about, some of you may be aware of, some of you may not. Band's called Dano Jones. They started out in '96. They didn't put out their first full album until 2002. And it's a 3-piece band led by Dano Jones, who plays the guitar, sings, writes all the material. I mean, this guy is a character, he's over the top. He's very charismatic. He's got, he's bursting with confidence. He's just one of these kind of like very on stage. You can't take your eyes off this guy. He's like, he just really, his aura kind of projects, he's one of these types of guys. And musically, man, they sound, I hear Motorhead in their stuff. I hear AC/DC in their stuff. I hear White Stripes in their stuff. There's a lot of punk, a lot of piss and vinegar and everything they do. The very, very aggressive attitude in a lot of their material with, of course, awesome, great hooks and very cool guitar riffs. So the first, I'm going to go to the first album for the first 2 tracks, and this is the first record, Born a Lion. This is an absolutely killer album. If you've never listened to it, you should check this album out. It's really, really good. The first song I'm going to talk about is called Lover Call. Lover Call actually got some radio play here in Canada. I mean, this song just starts off with this really infectious bass riff, and like a lot of their songs, he's basically singing but talking over just a bass riff and just a drum pattern. There's a lot of sparseness in a lot of what they do, and then the big chords come in, of course, later on. But the whole song is basically him, preaching about how he learned how to talk to the ladies. I mean, that's the kind of songs this guy writes. Like, they're lyrically, he kind of reminds me a lot of Phil Lynott, stuff like The Rocker, Get on My Sickle, that kind of thing, But yeah, that song is very, very cool. And then off the same record, there's a song called Word is Bond, which again is very, very punk. It's 2 chords for the majority of it. Very, very White Stripes in its simplicity. But it kind of shows off their punk roots. on that song specifically, and it's just, and again, it's got a fantastic chorus to it as well. The other one I want to talk about is from an album called We Sweat Blood. It's this one here. I'll show. Oh, there it is. This one is called I Love Living in the City. That sounds like the Motorhead song that Motorhead never recorded. It's very, very reminiscent of a Motor type of progression on that. Just big open chords, and great lyrics again, and that full attitude, aggressive attitude that they have. The next one I want to talk about is from an album called Never Too Loud. Now, this one, he's got a really difficult name to pronounce. The producer, it's the same guy that did Snakes and Arrows Rush, Nick.
Oh yeah,
that it's a really
I always forget how to pronounce it.
Yeah. So anyway, he produced this record, and this is sort of, so we did the punk, the sort of the White Stripes thing, the Motorhead type of thing. This song is about as close to pop as these guys got. There's actually acoustic guitar in this, and it's very rare that you ever hear any acoustic guitar in their music. But this one was written for the radio. And I'm not knocking the song. It's actually a really, really, really catchy song. It's got some really nice melody to it, and again, that acoustic guitar, and you can tell they were trying to get some radio play on that one. But the last one I'm going to mention, it comes off of Rock and Roll is Black and Blue, which is this record, and this is like the song. The song is called "You Wear Me Down." I love this song. It's got a very Zeppelin-esque type of riff to it, and these guys don't do a lot of that, so this is a little bit of a departure, but it's got that whole Zeppelin vibe to it. It's got that a killer riff, and that chorus is so catchy, that goes under that, what they're playing underneath. The chorus part, the guitar part is awesome. It really shows sort of, because this album is a little bit later on, how sort of they went from that sort of sparseness and leaving a lot of gaps, and writing really simple stuff, where now they're starting to play some stuff that's maybe a little more complex. Not it's not prog or anything, but just a little more concentrated musically, a little more going on, especially with the last two that I mentioned. But yeah, I mean, if you want to hear some aggressive songs, and I should mention too, Danko's a fantastic singer. He's not just belting the whole time. He's actually got a nice sounding voice. You should check these guys out. They're a band that should have a little more notoriety, because they're putting out some good stuff, and they're still out there now doing it. I know they do a lot of festivals in Europe, and they always go over well. So there you go, Dano Jones.
Nice.
Cool.
All righty. Next band.
Yeah, my second one is Alice Cooper, and I found some interesting trends here, directions that you could lump together that I thought was kind of cool. I'll start with Under My Wheels. So that's sort of like a retro rock feel again, just like I discussed with Motorhead. But they're not afraid of doing old time rock and roll. You could call it 50s rock, boogie rock. You could call it girl group rock. You could call it glam, right? Yeah, because Alice Cooper's right in there at the same time as the UK glam scene, and the UK glam scene was very retro. So you could have that. You could think of that song that way. You could think of Hello Hooray, Be My Lover, No More Mr. Nice Guy, Big Apple Dreamin', Working Up a Sweat, Teenage Lament, 74. So accessible, mainstreamy, because you recognize those sorts of chords and those sorts of ideas, because they are retro. They're very, very conservative sort of musical ideas. Second one I wanted to pick was Schools Out, because I wanted to represent the fact that Alice Cooper was very canny with their lyrical directions. Like, what a great lyrical idea. School's Out. And I'm 18, right? Great one. And Elected, I Want to Be President, right? So they have a lot of songs with No More Mr. Nice Guys, kind of a neat idea. So he was very smart with picking just like, why didn't I think of that idea before? Sorts of lyrics, right? That are just a kind of a cool idea. So I like that. And then I wanted to pick something to represent the very creepy proto-goth side of Alice Cooper, so Dead Babies. But you could pick Black Juju, Ballad of Dwight Fry, which is like a creepy country ballad even.
Yeah.
Killer, I Love the Dead, Sick Things, Marianne, like all of these are, they were very provocative, and they got him a lot of headlines, and they got him a lot of, oh my God, he's going to ruin American society and all this, right? With titles like I Love the Dead, Sick Things, right? And then when he sings them in that sneering sort of voice. And then I wanted to pick something to recognize the fact that they are uncommonly Doorsy. So I thought of Blue Turk. But you could pick Alma Mater as well. A lot of stuff off the first two albums. Grand Finale, Horns, which the Doors did as well. Desperado feels Doorsy. Killer seems kind of Doorsy. And then for my last category, I thought this was sort of interesting that they really have a lot of MC5 Detroit in them, right? They go to Detroit after moving from Phoenix to LA, and then they go to Detroit, and famously, it toughened up our sound, and they were hanging out with Iggy and MC5 and watching them do their thing. So I thought, yeah, sounds very MC5, but definitely Long Way to Go, which sounds like MC5 looking at you. But Gutter Cat versus the Jets, Public Animal number 9, Raped and Freezing, which also even has a little Velvet Underground sort of feel to it. But they do some music that sounds like it could have been on MC5 albums, which is not a good thing because it's another thing that dates them, right? So even in 71, 72, 73, they're making music that sounds like it could have come out in 70, right? 69, 70, 71 kind of thing. So yeah, I thought that was interesting that they've got the old rock and roll, and they've got the Doors, which is old rock and roll, and they've got MC5, which is old rock and roll in this band, trying to, operating and doing well and selling a lot of records in the early 70s, but they've got a lot of old influences. So I thought that was an interesting theme. So there you go, Alice Cooper.
Good choices.
Nice. All right, Pete, what's your second one?
All right, let's go to Europe. We're going to Europe, but the band Europe from Sweden.
A lot of Americans are moving to Europe, I hear.
You never know, right? So, again, kind of like the Nazareth situation. So here we have an instance of a band who had one enormous hit. And even their other hit from that same album, which both of those songs are really kind of outliers when you look at the rest of the catalog. And I think this band has always been judged on those two songs, of course, Final Countdown and Carrie. And if you look at like the albums that came before that album and a good chunk of what came after it, not really all that representative of what this band is all about. So I tried to pick like 5 songs that I think are more in line with where they were as a band in the early days, and then some songs that are more in line with where they've been for the last decade plus, right? Or probably 15 years, Martin? How long are they into this kind of reunion? This is like 20 years now, probably, right? I don't know. I'm losing track.
It's a long time, right?
It's been a while, right? So my first track is there's 2 songs from this album, actually. And the album is Wings of Tomorrow, which is their second album, which is much, much more of a kind of like Euro power metal, neoclassical meets power metal type of thing, gothic metal. Very, very unique for the time, I think, because really nobody in Sweden was doing stuff like this. And I'm going to go with the title track, Wings of Tomorrow, which, again, you have this guitar player, John Norum, who's just churning out one great riff after another in these blazing kind of like almost neoclassical solos mixed with like some Schenker and Gary Moore type pentatonic stuff, which is really, really cool. Joey Tempest, great vocals. So there's that song, which kind of is the kind of more power metal style that they were doing. But then the other track is Open Your Heart, which is kind of sort of a power ballad, but like really good and very European flavored. To me, I think Open Your Heart's got a great hook to it. Might even be catchier than any other songs that really made it big going forward for the next couple of years. In fact, the song is so good, they went and redid it on one of their albums that comes after this. But I think it's a great, great song. if anybody knew who Europe was at the time, I think that could have been a great single. And I think, like I said, I think the record label and the band also thought so, which is why they redid it on a later album in a couple of years. But yeah, Open Your Heart and Wings of Tomorrow from this album. And then I'm going to go to fast forward a couple albums to the Eye of the World album. And I'm going to go with Superstitious. Again, here you've got the band doing these really catchy but fairly heavy anthems with blistering guitars, those great vocals, and just one hook after another, but just so memorable and stadium ready, really. And again, this, to me, a song like Superstitious is just a little bit more mature than something like The Final Countdown, which is a great song. Everybody's sick of it, but I think Superstitious is more where they were right around this time. And then we're going to fast forward to after the reunion years, and they're in like a totally different place now than they were back then. So now in the latter part of their career, they have kind of embraced their roots, like what they grew up listening and the bands that they really kind of got into when they first decided to become a band, and specifically Deep Purple, Rainbow, UFO, Led Zeppelin, and Black Sabbath, right? Hey, why not? So you got stuff like The War of Kings, which is the title track to this album, which is just absolutely terrific. Big Hammond organ, huge guitar riffs, blistering solos, and Joey Tempest now doing this more mature, kind of like rock star vocal, which I think really, really works. The stuff is still very accessible, but it's darker, much more serious, and a lot heavier than the stuff they were doing back in the 80s. And last but not least, I'm going to go to the last studio album they've done, Walk the Earth. They're due for another one. And I have picked, which is The Siege, which is the second song from Walk the Earth. Again, just dark, heavy, menacing, heavy rock. Maybe not quite metal, but certainly a little heavier than standard hard rock. Great dark riffs from John Norum, great vocals. Again, doesn't sound, if you were to play someone who probably only knows the Final Countdown song and you played them The Siege from this record, they would probably never guess it was the same band. Completely different, but so in line with what they are today as a band, which is just, we're just going to return to our roots and be just a good 70s inspired heavy rock band. So yeah, those are my 5 songs from the band Europe. If you're watching, you've never really listened beyond the 8 songs, go check them out.
You turned me on to Europe a while back, and yeah,
Great band.
They are not Carrie.
Yeah. No, they're not. It's just a terrific band, really is. And it always drives me crazy when people put down Europe and why don't you like Europe? Oh, if I ever hear that song again, I'm gonna like, well, is that all you've heard? Because that's not what it's all about.
It's like with Extreme, it's a blessing and a curse. Extreme, more than words. Yeah, that's like the oddball song, right?
And the self-titled debut from those guys from 1983 is just a masterpiece of Swedish. New wave of Swedish heavy metal. It's so Teutonic and Viking, right? Just the twin leads and stuff on it. It's just absolutely epic. So cool.
This band has reinvented themselves many times, because even after the Final Countdown, like they did what the hell's the name of the album? The Paradise album. I always forget the title of it.
Prisoners of
Paradise, which is basically like their total hair metal album. But that's pretty good. It's got some really good songs on it, and the playing is great. And then they broke up and went their separate ways for a while, and then they came back totally reinvigorated and kind of reinvented themselves once again. So yeah, great band.
All right, so my second band is another Canadian band, and these guys were huge in Canada. I don't know how much exposure they got to this into the U.S. I'm sure they got some, but I'm talking about Trooper, and their heyday, mid to late 70s, early 80s. They were discovered by Randy Bachman. So Randy Bachman has a connection to this band and the next one I'm going to talk about. But the first thing I want to, like, these guys are basically known, let's say, as sort of a pop kind of mellow band that got a lot of radio play, right? That's sort of, what most people know, because that's what they heard on the radio. But their debut album, called Trooper, is pretty darn heavy, pretty big, heavy slab of 70s chords and riffing, and it's totally like you're listening to that, and you're listening to Ray McGuire, who's I love this guy's voice, is an amazing singer, and this guy's absolutely ripping and belting. He's even doing the Rob Halford going super high, on some of these songs. Like, it's really cool. The song, I mean, all the songs on this are heavy, well, except for one, which I'll mention in a minute. But the song that I wanted to sing aloud is a song called Roller Rink. It just big bruising guitars throughout, and just a big slab of 70s heavy rock guitar in this song. Just really, really cool. And then after this record, they mellowed dramatically, right? They became much more radio friendly, and I don't know, that might have been the influence of Randy. I don't know. But the other song that's sort of a weird outlier compared to the rest of that album that I want to mention, that's on the same album, which is another killer song called General Hand Grenade. Now, this was all over the radio. It's one of these poppy tunes. It's just really catchy. It's infectious, and the lyrics are fun. It's just one of these fun kind of summertime driving with the top down type of songs, right? Just really super catchy, and the more similar to what they're known for.
Do you know who we're talking about at all? Do you know this band at all?
I've heard of them, but I've never listened to them.
Yeah, they're basically our version of Tim Hortons in the 70s. I mean, they're just such a Canadian phenomenon. You couldn't get away from them from like what would you say, Hack, 78 to 81 kind of thing? Maybe
easily.
More like 77 to 80,
70. Yeah, that was their wedge right there. Yeah. The next one I want to talk about is this record here, Two for the Show. This is just, and the song I want to mention is the title cut, Two from the Show, Two for the Show. I mean, this is just a beautiful, beautiful, mellow song. It's got the beautiful guitar line over the beautiful melody. I mean, this could have been an Elton John song. It's got that sort of keyboards with the nice guitar over top and a beautiful vocal again. It's a classic song here. This got a shit ton of radio play, but that's a song you should definitely check out. Again, if you just want to mellow out, listen to some really nice arrangement, just a beautiful melodic song. Awesome. So we got the mellow, we got the heavy, we got the pop, and because they're from the late 70s, what do they got to play? They got to do some boogie woogie. So also from Two from the Show, right? Loretta. And Loretta is just a straight up honky tonk piano with boogie woogie chords. And it's just a fun song. It's another side of the band, right? But they all did that at that time. And this is their, example of one of their songs. But the last one I want to talk about, which is a little bit different from them, is a song off this record, Knock 'Em Dead Kid. And funny enough, this one is called Cold, Cold Toronto, which we're starting to get there as the fall approaches. But this one is a little bit different because this is very 70s. It's got some electric piano. It's got some flange on the guitar. It's got a little bit of that 70s kind of R&B feel with some, gritty lyrics about Toronto. These guys, they did a lot of different things, a lot of different styles. And I got to mention, I saw these guys in a long past their heyday. I saw them in a small bar, and they were still amazing. They were still fantastic. But I got to mention the guitar player, Brian Smith. That guy always wore a baseball cap. He kind of was like, for me, he kind of reminded me, he's like a Canadian Rick Nielsen, this guy, right? The baseball cap, that was kind of his shtick, and he always played a Les Paul. And he was always such a super melodic, tasty player. And he's always been one of my favorite Canadian guitar players. I mean, they had their biggest hits. Raise a Little Hell was huge. Probably their biggest song, Martin. Would that be Raise a Little Hell?
Yeah, and then second, I would say, they had a lot of hits, but what is the Boy in the Great?
Boys in the Bright White Sports Cars?
White sports car, yeah.
Yeah.
Waving their hands in the air.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
you might have heard Raise a Little Hell. Surely you've heard it. Raise a little hell, raise a little
raise
hell.
A little hell, raise a little hell.
No?
I'd have to go listen. It doesn't sound familiar.
Oh, yeah. You know what? Get their greatest hits, Hot Shots. It's amazing. It's amazing.
But the product mix is really like an April Wine album, from the 70s, right, Hack? I mean, a little of it, like you say, a little of this, a little of that, like a Nazareth album, like a not particularly heavy Nazareth album. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you should check out Hot Shots. It's their greatest hits. I think that was their best-selling record, was their greatest hits record. Everybody had Hot Shots because it just cherry-picked all the hits from all the other albums, you know. But yeah, you should check these guys out. I mean, you know, their songs go over great in a bar, I'll tell you that. Because I've played both. I've played the Raise a Little Hell and Boys in Their Bright White Sports Cars. Great songs.
I'll check it out.
So there you go. There's my number 2.
Yeah, cool. All right, my last one is Gillan. Pete knows how much I love Gillan. Pete loves Gillan too. Hack loves Gillan. Everybody loves Gillan, right? But basically, to pick the directions, I thought of their goofy covers like Trouble, New Orleans. Then they covered Stevie Wonder, Living for the City. They played that pretty heavy and kind of serious. But yeah, they were kind of into that. John McCoy, the bassist, Big John, it was kind of his idea to do these things, and they got hits with them when they did these covers. So that's sort of the first direction, I'd say, you know, a little bit of a trend. The other one is the fast heavy metal from this band. And I know I've told this story before, but I remember having a minor argument with Ian Gillan in a hotel room about, you know, I said, you know, you guys were actually pretty heavy metal, right? And he goes, we weren't a heavy metal band. And I started rattling off all these super fast, thrashy songs. So Sacre Bleu, but you've got Roller, Sleeping on the Job, Running White-Faced City Boy, The Ballad of Lusitania Express, What's the Matter? And I started rattling off all these songs. He goes, oh yeah, Martin, I guess we were pretty heavy, weren't they? Because he's now playing them through his head, and it's like all, you know, major high BPMs and stuff. So yeah, heavy. They could be a very heavy band when they wanted to, and they were quite heavy generally. The next one is sort of the I picked the song Nervous, sort of for their plodding, bluesy, Sabbathy thing. They had no fear of playing something really slow and grungy and heavy, and all their productions are very oddly dirty sounding. But yeah, Puget Sound, Night Ride Out of Phoenix is pretty thumping and slow. Life Goes On is slow, bluesy, bluesy. So it's almost like a preamble. You can almost see the DNA of him, you know, building up to being in Black Sabbath for Born Again. You kind of get these songs that could have been on Born Again kind of thing, right? Next is the ballads. They weren't afraid to do ballads once in a while, but it was usually fairly bluesy, and he would vamp in a very bluesy style. So something like If You Believe Me, If I Sing Softly, For Your Dreams. And then finally, last but most important, Pete loves this as well, but the epics, right? The long Gillan masterpieces, the big, huge epics. The greatest one of all time is probably right there on his second album, Mr. Universe, the title track. The way it just stops, and there's this tribal drumming and this guitar solo, and then it just crashes into another round of the chorus. It's just so cool. The cool Colin Towns keyboards going on. So yeah, they would do these long songs with all these extra parts in them, sort of thing. And they were really kind of successful at it. But Fighting Man is an early one of these as well. Demon Driver is up onto their last album, Magic. Born to Kill is very much like Mr. Universe, and then even On the Rocks on Glory Road. So they had a bunch of these long songs that were really successful and loved by the fans. And as an honorable mention, I thought of the sort of the poppy. They would mix poppy with heavy metal every once in a while. So a song like Nightmare, Long Gone, Vengeance is just very kind of goofy. You're So Right has a very poppy chorus, but heavy otherwise. You know, the first thing I thought of actually to do this exercise was humor, right? I thought of No Laughing in Heaven. Then I couldn't find any more funny songs, really. It was really weird. So it's there's a lot less of that than you sort of think. But yeah, there are weird turns of phrases and like goofy little bits here and there. Vengeance is kind of a silly song as well, like I say. But yeah, the epics, the main thing I think they should be remembered for is these masterpieces, these 6, 7, 8 minute songs that were just like almost like apocalyptically cool kind of thing. So there you go, Gillan.
Sacre Bleu.
Yeah,
I love Vengeance, man. I love that. That song is so friggin' good.
Great, man.
So that hook it's relentless. Love it.
Yeah, great man.
All right. What do you got, Pete?
All right,
Last one.
so last one. Let's go to the UK for a band that I love a lot that never really got the recognition they deserve. Never really a big band, but all three of the guys from the classic lineup of the band went to do pretty great things, right? So I'm talking about Trapeze, of course, that trio of Mel Galley on guitars, of course, the kind of driving force behind the band, would eventually go to join Whitesnake and did the Phenomenon stuff, right? You got Dave Holland on drums, soon to go to Judas Priest, and of course Glenn Hughes. Glenn Hughes, of course, we know all the stuff he's done with Deep Purple and Black Sabbath and Gary Moore and Black Country Communion and Hughes Thrall and lots of solo stuff, and guy's been everywhere. So this is a band where no hits for this band, but I thought this was pretty easy to pick 5 songs that I think really tell you all you need to know about Trapeze. And they're all going to come from 2 albums, which to me are their 2 best albums. They have other good albums, but these are the 2 which are just representative of what they do. And the first is going to be from the Medusa album, which is their second record. It's called Black Cloud. It's the kickoff track. Again, it's just if you love the Slide It In album from Whitesnake, Mel Galley wrote a lot of the riffs on that album. Black Cloud could have come from that album. It's just good meat and potatoes riff rock, but it's got lots of groove to it. This band had tons of groove. I don't know if I'd call them funky, but I guess they kind of were. One of the first bands to kind of combine funk and hard rock, even proto metal on some of their stuff, and they did it great. And this is Glenn, very early on, still has a great voice, but you can tell he's really, really young. Just good compact drumming, big bass, and lots of riffs and solos, and that great voice. So Black Cloud's the first track, and then I'm going to go with the title track, Medusa, which is really heavy, but also full of tons and tons of groove and so many great riffs. I mean, just tons of great guitar playing on this song. So good. So those are the first 2, both from that album, and the other 3 are both all going to be from You Are the Music, We're Just the Band, which is their third record. This album is even more groovy and funky than that one. I would say Trapeze is a little heavier. This still rocks quite a bit, but it's definitely got more of that kind of like funk thing going on. And I'm going to go with Way Back to the Bone, which, and then boom, the riff comes in, just absolutely kills. Also going to go with You Are the Music, We're Just the Band, the title track, which is just so infectious, so catchy. And then Keep in Time, the kickoff track, which just simple but groovy, and lots of those classic 70s hard rock riffs and that wailing voice. And you can tell right from early on, you knew this guy was going to be a star as a singer. He just had it, and great bass player too. So yeah, if you've never listened to Trapeze before, absolutely these 5 songs will instantly get you into the band and tell you everything you need to know about what they were all about. When Glenn leaves to join Deep Purple, they would continue on, and Mel would take up the lead vocals for a couple albums. Then they would bring on Peter Golby on lead vocals, who a lot of people might remember sang for Uriah Heep after he left Trapeze. So, but all throughout, very, very similar sound. No matter who was in the band, it always just sounded like Trapeze. So yeah, that's my last pick for today.
Nice.
Cool. All right. Well, I mentioned Randy Bachman, the Randy Bachman connection. So, of course, the last band I'm going to talk about is BTO. Now, Randy did something that very few musicians have ever done. He was super successful with 2 completely different bands. He did it twice. And then BTO was the second. And I mean, I'm sure most people know who BTO is. I mean, they were pretty big internationally. They toured, Europe and US and Canada, of course. And yeah, so I was looking for 5 songs that kind of showed sort of the scope of what they did. The first 2 songs that I picked are off of their debut record, which is just BTO. And the first one I'm going to mention is Hold Back the Water. This is very CCR kind of Southern rock sounding, which makes a lot of sense because, I mean, this band came from another band called Brave Belt, which was a country rock band. So it's like this almost sounds like a carryover from that. And so it's got that kind of swampy feel and a sort of driving, plodding drum beat. I mean, some of the drums on some of these songs, it almost sounds like a kid just like banging away in time. Hey, Martin?
I
You know what I
totally
mean?
agree. That's a great way of
Just
putting
sounds
it.
like
Yeah.
boom, boom. You know what I
Strange
mean?
caveman drumming, right?
Yeah,
Everything
it's
we
just
accuse Peter Criss of, you get on.
yeah. Well, I mean, this actually makes compared to Peter. I mean, Peter's Bonham, but anyway,
Exactly.
you know, but yeah. But then on the same record, and this is something that they do that I absolutely love, is when they pull out, when Randy pulls out his jazz chops, and and they do a song here called Blue Collar, which is a straight up jazz tune. It's all jazz, jazz chords vamping over the thing, very similar to like what he did with the Guess Who Undone. That's a jazz tune, all jazz chords. And Randy studied with Lenny Breau when he was younger, and he learned all this jazz stuff, and he tries to throw it in every chance he gets. And this song it got radio play, being a jazz song. It was that good and so well done. And there's this solo that he plays where he's using a little bit of a wah pedal there, and it's just, man, Randy is one of my favorite guitar players. Just so tasty and just phenomenal. So right off the bat on the one record, you've got a CCR sounding tune, and then you've got a jazz tune, right? So there's already a little bit of variety there as well. So for the next type of song, the next example, I pulled from their second record, BTO2, which is a killer album. And now they've gone from their southern rock to jazz to this, and the song I'm going to mention is Welcome Home, where you've got the light and the shade. You've got the acoustic guitar, very mellow, and it's Randy singing, and then these big block chords just come over and smash you on the head, and he's screaming his ass off, and it's so amazing. Like, it just, that sort of juxtaposition of the mellow stuff and then the heavy stuff over top of it. It's great. And they do this on some other songs as well, but I love that formula. And then for me, the best part of the whole song is that outro, because he's playing at the end. He's just going ape shit, playing some screaming leads. And then all of a sudden the band sort of drops out and you just got this jazz beat starts up. And then it turns into a jazz outro. I mean, that's absolutely beautiful. I'm just like, who does that? Randy Bachman does that. I mean, that's one of my favorite things that I've, to this day, that blows me away. Absolutely love it. So again, another angle to what they do. And the last thing I'm going to mention, these last two come off of this record, which is their most popular record. Probably, and I think it sold the most as well, Not Fragile. And this song is just about as heavy as you could possibly get, and it's the title cut from Not Fragile. This is just big dumb chords, dunga dunga dunk dun dun. Like there's no subtlety to this. It's like just bashing you over the head. And then you got C.F. Turner.
Neanderthal riff, right?
Yeah, Neanderthal. And then you got C.F. Turner just screaming his head off to be heard over top of this pounding guitar that just runs through the whole song, right? So, yeah,
that's where, as I played in my head for the drums, all I can think of practically is a hi-hat. Just
yeah, that's all you hear.
The drums are so basic, right? And it's almost like Randy, he's smart enough to have designed it that way. It's almost like, keep everything out of the way just so you only hear our big dumb riff kind of thing.
The big dumb chords. Yeah. And that's the thing with Randy. I mean, he's such a sophisticated player, but yet he goes Neanderthal, and he'll do both in the same song, right? Like Welcome Home. It's like this very sophisticated jazzy thing, but let's go Neanderthal on the choruses, right? It's amazing. I love that the difference there. And the last one I want to mention off the same record, because this is a riff tune, And this probably, well, outside of Taking Care of Business, might be their most well-known song. And I got to talk about Roll On Down the Highway. That riff, I mean, that is just so catchy. The riff, the verses are great. He's got the you know, the electric guitar. He doubles it with the acoustic guitar. They used to do that all the time. They always had tucked an acoustic guitar under the electric guitar. And it's just the playing. And if you listen really close, even under the verses, he's doing all these little trails on all the chords and kind of like fleshing it out. Just a really, really cool song. It's hooky, it's heavy, it's all of that, you know. And then that record has got some of the best freaking riffs. Sledgehammer, that riff is just crushing. And Secondhand, I mean, it's so, it's just big and powerful and just, love BTO. And so, you know, you got so many sides of this band. You know, they can be heavy, they can be jazzy, you know, they can be bluesy, you know, like a song like Blue Monin, you know, get that nice shuffle going. I mean, it's just, they're a great band. And, you know, if anybody wants to sort of get a taste, I don't know, I would say BTO 2 or maybe Not Fragile. Those ones I would suggest, but
that's your best place to start. Yeah, both of those.
If you haven't listened to BTO, I mean, it's, you know, you're missing out because these guys are absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. So there you go. All righty. Okay, so Martin, what do you got coming up? Anything you want to mention?
Well, there's always, every week, there is the audio podcast, History in 5 Songs with Martin Popoff. And the latest books at martinpopoff.com are the 2 Genesis panel books, the updated Iron Maiden panel book, and the new Judas Priest panel book. And Contrarians is going along. There's shows there all the time. But yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, I just did a Contrarians. I don't know when Grant's going to air it, but I just did one in last week. So
nice.
Yeah, check that out. Pete, yourself?
I mean, just the normal weekly stuff. We've got, let's see, tomorrow is the review crew. So Jamie Laszlo will get together a new crew to just review a bunch of new albums. That's coming up tomorrow. And then I'll be ranking the albums of the Climax Blues Band on Sunday. And then we got Hudson Valley Squares on Monday, and probably a review of the Iron Maiden show that I'm going to on tomorrow. Saturday.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'm going to see them in New Jersey. So probably doing that during the week as well. So yeah, other than that, the normal stuff. Martin and I just had our show this morning. So if you haven't checked it out on Sea of Tranquility, go check that out. And yeah, the normal stuff.
All right, cool.
Wait, this morning or tomorrow morning?
This morning.
This morning. Oh, really?
When is this airing? Is this airing Friday or tonight?
It's gonna air
I
Friday.
see. All right. Okay. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you're being confused. You're trying
It's
to lay
Friday.
It's Friday, Martin.
It's Friday.
We're so used to doing these live all the time, right?
Yeah. So if you're new to the channel, folks, please consider liking and subscribing. That'd be much appreciated. There's links below if you want to help support the channel. I've got, I don't know, 2 years worth of shows with these gentlemen. There's all kinds of music talk on there. There's product reviews. I just put out a video on another guitar that I got. My guitar disease never ends. But yeah, check out the product reviews. I got original music. But if, you know, please support the channel, and it'd be much appreciated. I want to thank these gentlemen once again for doing this. Guys, hang out for a second. We will catch you all next month, and take care. Cheers.
Bye, everyone.